Hi, I'm Tamara and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to talk to you about introverted intuitive types, the INFJ, ENFJ, INTJs, ENTJs, and psychics, and why I think INTPs can be psychic. So let me share with you the story about something that happened to me, and then I'll get more into why I think what I think. I was at work one morning, and this lady who's newish, who maybe I've had a 30-second conversation with her, I don't see her on most days, she comes into my office and she goes, "You're so hungry. You are so hungry. Let me get lunch because somebody made me some and I'm gonna share it with you." And she was like, "Do you have something for me to put this in? Like, do you have a container, something, because you're so hungry?" And she kept saying that over and over, and I was kind of like, "What is your name again? I don't know anything about you. You don't know anything about me. Why do you keep saying I'm hungry? I don't know, because I'm not hungry." Finally, I found a container. I told her, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me lunch." It was just kind of a weird thing, but it made me think. And I started realizing I really hadn't had an appetite for probably a couple months, you know, because I usually do have hunger pains. I know some people don't, but I do. And I hadn't been feeling that great. So after that day, I started to increase my calorie intake, figuring out ways to do that. And I started noticing that it was helping me to feel much better. So she was right. How did she know this about me when I didn't even know this about myself? So anyway, fast forward like a couple of months, I had like a leak in my ceiling, and I walked by where she was sitting, and she was sitting where there was this huge leak in the ceiling. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I hope that's not a sign that something is wrong with my ceiling and it's gonna end up looking like that." And she looked at me and was like, "It's going to be fixed." And then she went back to reading her book, and I'm like, a couple of days later, ceiling was fixed, no big deal. Still don't understand what the problem was, but it was something really weird. But she was right, it was fixed. So I started feeling like, this chick, I started thinking, okay, first of all, knowing MBTi, I started thinking, is she an INFJ? But she just doesn't give me that vibe. Total INTP vibe. But here this girl is knowing some things about me and doesn't know me at all. And so a couple months later, I bumped into her again. I called her into my office. I said, "Can I talk to you for 2 seconds? I said, "Are you psychic?" And I was expecting her to be kind of smiley, you know, like how INFJs are, but no. It was very serious, very worried, very just, you know, she didn't seem to take it as a compliment. She took it kind of like, "How do you know this? And this is not something that I share." We kind of got into a conversation about it. She explained what it was. It sounds very much psychic to me. So I say that to say that any type, any MBTI type can be psychic. It also answers a question for me about why it is that anytime I talk to an INFJ and I just kind of am blatantly like, "You're psychic, right?" And they're like, "No." Some INFJs connect to that. Some of them do not connect to that at all. Because I think introverted intuition is kind of a totally different thing. It's not necessarily psychic. I listened to a radio station where this lady who is psychic comes on. Now, psychic, some people claim to be psychic who are really not. Some people are really psychic. I think it's extremely rare. So I don't know if this lady really is psychic or not, but she's an ENFP. And then there are other types that claim to be. So introverted intuition is more like, let's say you take notes in the background of your mind, and you have all of these notes that you've taken from different experiences. And every time it's like you're taking paint colors and splashing them on this backdrop. And they stay there, and it's like you use that information whenever you need it. And that's kind of what introverted intuition really feels like. It's like you've had these experiences and you remember them, and so you're making connections with that memory with something else that's going on in your head or in front of you, actually, something that's happening to you in real time, but because it's not necessarily what you're seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, it feels like, where is this coming from? But it's actually coming from real-time experiences, and you're just connecting them together. And it feels a little bit like a knowing. It feels like intuition. It's just like people who have a sensing function, they do things and pick up on things that people who don't have that function can do. Like, for example, with me, I'm intuitive. There was something next to my office on the wall years ago, and I never ever noticed this trophy case that was there because I don't notice things like that. I don't, details and different things like that, I don't notice them. I just don't pay attention to them. Whereas somebody who's a sensor could say he was wearing a black dress, he had a black mustache, he had on a white shirt, he had a collar on it. They're picking up on all these details that for some reason, that's just not how my mind works. So I think no matter which one you are, sensor or intuitive, the gift is still amazing and great. I'll give you an example of myself, okay? So I am an Infj. I knew probably when I was in about 4th or 5th grade that I would pick up things about people, and that I just knew, and I just knew that I knew that I was right about things that I was picking up on about people, but I didn't really understand what that thing was. So I knew that I wanted to go into counseling at a very young age because I just really liked helping people. I felt like I sort of had a gift. I could kind of connect with things. I remember being a young teenager and I was walking with my mom. We were going into a grocery store. So it's kind of like there's a parking lot, there's a street, there's a sidewalk, there's a store. So you have to kind of cross through the street part to get to the store. So I was walking with my mom, and all of a sudden, this feeling came over me. I don't know how to explain it. I've never had that feeling before, but it was like all over me. And I told my mom, I said, we need to stop. And my mom is kind of reactive. So she was like, what? What are you talking about? Why do we need to stop? What are you talking about? And I just said, I feel like we need to be careful. It was weird. All of a sudden, this car comes going 90 past us. And she was, I don't know what she was getting high off of, but she had something hanging out of her mouth, and she just looked like she was on one. If we had taken one more step, she would have hit us because she was going that fast. Now, what do I call that? Even though I have introverted intuition, being an ENFJ, I call that God. I mean, it felt like God, which is why sometimes an INFJ might say, oh, it's God telling me that, this or that, which God is everything. God is sensing, God is intuition, God is everything. So he's all of it, but I don't know if that was necessarily my introverted intuition function picking that up, or if it was God actually intervening and giving me that feeling. So I think INTJs and INFJs have more of an ability to actually say something that's going to happen in the future, and it actually happens. Their introverted intuition is their first function. They would do that more so than an ENFJ or an ENTJ would. And I think it's still coming from a place of experience and how things tend to work out, and fast forwarding in your head and your mind and putting things into play in that way. I think ENFJs can fast forward things and kind of know how things are going to play out. I'll put one friendship in my head, for example, where she got in contact with a guy that she had been in contact with years ago, that she felt the strongest connection. She got back in touch with him years later, and so she was like, oh my gosh, this is finally gonna happen. We're gonna have a connection. And I knew it wasn't going to work. I just knew it, like, it's not gonna happen. You know, I mean, I was hopeful, but I just felt like it wasn't gonna happen back then. It's not gonna happen now. I think it's you're piecing together things, happenings, experiences, just different things where you kind of know. Now with that friend, I did not share that with the friend. Why kill the dream? Why not let the person play that out themselves? Because that's what they're gonna do anyway, right? So let them play that out and figure it out for themselves, but just kind of be a support person, be an encouraging person, be a, maybe there's a possibility, you know, I'm not perfect, so, but it's sort of this sort of knowing. Sometimes ENFJs can get fixated on a person where it's like you get stuck on someone, either because they triggered you in some way, like either they've made you mad, or you're just flat out curious, or it's a combination of the two. Figuring out little nuances, little pieces of information, putting together things about their life story, what makes them tick, just putting this puzzle together. It's almost like a sport, piecing this information together so then you know some things about this person that's sort of this nagging thing that just won't stop, where you just can't stop figuring somebody out, or the nuances, or I know you're gonna say this, or this is what you're gonna do, or this is how you're gonna act. I think ENFJs have the ability to get into people's heads and know how they're reacting, know if they're lying, know what's truth, what's not truth, know what action that person should take, should not take, if they're going down the right path, if they're not, and kind of stepping in and knowing, you know, don't make that move, that's not the correct move. Kind of knowing how that person feels without them going into great detail. You just get it. It's just kind of an intuitive thing. I think with ENTJs and INTJs, you have to remember that they are NTs, so their temperaments are totally different. So being an NF feels different than an NT, because with an NF, you're going to be more into people and their feelings, whereas those two types, they're going to be more into action and leadership and making things happen and taking charge. I was watching a video the other day with an ENTJ, and he was saying, you know, my first action is to knock you out if I need to step into action in that way. I mean, he was joking, but then I might take a back step and, oh, okay, start figuring some things out. They're not going to be so concerned about what's going on in your head as they are about getting this right, getting some perfection going, jumping into a situation and making it happen. I think INTPs are intuitive, but they are NTs, and so they don't, I would say tapping in, walking around in people's heads and that sort of thing, that might not be that's not really how they lead with their intuition. Their intuition helps them to sort of get inside the heads of the mechanics of whatever it is that they're trying to figure out and make those things tick, make computer systems tick, make them sing, getting sort of in a trance with something that they are very curious about and executing that particular thing to the best of their ability. But they, because of their peace, sometimes that function can lead them to other things. So just a little tidbit for you guys as well. So I want to thank everybody for watching my video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please share it with other people that you know. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe so you can be the first to get my new MBTi videos. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.